The purpose of today's video is to share personal real-life testimonies of how I realized that no time was promised. I decided that it was time to make a video like this because, like most people, I found myself taking advantage of the people that I love most in my life. I found myself thinking that they would be there forever or that I will always have the opportunity. The first story that I want to start with is the story of my father. And I kind of summed this up in my video blueprint, but the death of my father was the first thing that taught me that no time is promised. So my father was someone that I never knew. I had brief memories of him, good and bad, and my mom taught me to hate my dad through her bitterness, but his actions didn't move me to love him or want to get to know him. So it wasn't like I was torn between my mom and my dad. He was in and out of jail, and I realized that he chose the streets over his family. At one point in time in my life, when we moved out of state, my mom begged him to move out with us, and he couldn't leave his street life behind. Um, when I last saw my dad, I was about 12 or 13 years old. I was at his house, and I wouldn't even say hi to him. Imagine walking into your dad's house or any parent or guardian house, and you don't even speak to him. And he even told my mom, and she told me about years later, she won't even say hi to me, and I wouldn't. And I witnessed myself the lifestyle that my dad had chose. And he had two drug addicts living in his home at the same time that we were living there. And I remember we went to Home Depot, we went to the store, we got the paint. I painted my room my favorite color. Um, we painted the house together. We bought TVs, we bought game systems. You know, he had just got us a new puppy. And so I'm thinking in my mind, this is it. We're finally going to be a family. But no, maybe a couple days later, it wasn't long, probably wasn't even a week, but I can't look at a real time analysis. He told my mom that she had to go, but we could stay. The kids could stay, but she had to go. And obviously that wasn't going to happen, you know. My dad got two drug addicts living in the house, and we hadn't seen him in years. How was she just going to leave us with him? I don't even think I would have been comfortable being left with him because once again, I really didn't know him. And it's not like the drug addicts weren't more of a people. I mean, the guy taught me how to download songs for free on my phone. And the woman really didn't bother me. I think she was just asleep most of the time. But the point was, it was strangers living in our house, and I knew that as a child. And so my mom couldn't leave us in those conditions, even though she wasn't the best herself. But my dad had chosen a lifestyle over our family. Soon after everything happened, I found out that he was sentenced to another 3 years in prison. And it was for drugs. And I can't really say how I felt about it because I was just used to it. I was used to the disappointment. I was used to the hurt. And 3 days before he passed away, I was laying down on the floor, and it was late at night, but I wasn't asleep, but I had my eyes closed. And it's like everything was flashing before me. It looked like a preview of a movie. And I saw my father. I saw his face. He was in a prison jumpsuit. He was in a blue jumpsuit with a white shirt underneath. And he was looking out the window, and you could see the prison yard. You could see grass and the barbed wire fence. And so I knew he was looking at a prison yard. And then it would be flashes of his face. And before I knew it, he was laying on the floor in a vision, and he had blood coming down on the side of his mouth. And remember, I wasn't asleep, but by the time I had opened my eyes and got up, it's as though this vision was going on for hours. That's how detailed and extensive it was. I saw what he was wearing. I felt his emotions. I felt him dying in the vision. And I got up and I went to the bathroom and I told myself, it feel like he already dead. Because in my mind, I know that he's in prison, but I know that he's not dead. I would have been notified, right? And so the next day I called his mom, I called my granny, and I said, how is dad doing? Now I have been concerned. It took to the point for me to see the own death of my father through this vision that God had given me for me to finally be concerned about him. Even though I felt like he was never really concerned about me. It's obvious that we loved each other somewhere, but it just wasn't, I can't even say normal love, but it just wasn't right. And so she told me he was doing okay and she had just seen him. And so it was a card that I made my dad back in first grade. It was a green card and it had a star on the front, a gold star that I had made. I made him make this card and it said #1 dad on it. And what's so funny is the last time I seen that card was when he carried it in his wallet or his pocket, one of the two. And the last time I seen it was at that house, same house where the drug addicts were. And he pulled it out and he showed me and he told me that he always carried it. And so I went to school that day and that morning and I thought to myself, he been keeping that raggedy car with him this whole time. I'm gonna finally remake this car for him. And so I remade it. And I wrote him a letter. And in the letter I told him all about me because my dad never knew me. I felt like he never got a chance to know me. And I never got a chance to know him. And I didn't really know how to get in contact with him. All I thought was when somebody go to prison, you could see him in person. When I was a child, when I was a kid, I would go visit him in prison. So I didn't know about letters or phone calls. I thought the only way that I could see him was if I went to go visit him. And so, anyways, I wrote him about my favorite food and my favorite color, and I just wrote him a letter all about me, right? And about 3 days later, I was just sitting down and I was in the living room. I was staring out the patio windows a regular day. And when my mom walked into the room, the atmosphere just changed. It just shifted. And I believe that my mom didn't know how to deliver the news, but this is exactly how she said it. Well, your dad is dead. Just like that. And I don't think she said it like that to be cold. I just truly believe that she didn't know how to deliver the news. But at the time when I was a child, I felt like, why did you say it like that? Why did you deliver it to us like that? Anyways, I didn't really know who God was, but this was the first time in my life that I was actually seeking God. About 13 years old, I was really seeking God. I would pray every single day. I had a routine. I would pray at a certain time. I would talk to God. I was really telling God my problems. I was in a dark place in my life, and for once in my life, even though I was a child, I knew to turn to God. And so, anyways, the first thing that God said to me after my mom delivered the news of my dad's death, he said, I already prepared you. And then it hit me. The vision that I had 3 days earlier was God preparing me. And so when I went to my dad's funeral, I was the only one who went because at the time I was living in Arizona. My mom didn't want to go. And my youngest sister, she had been too young. And my other sister, she wanted to go, but I don't know why they didn't buy her a ticket. I was the only one who went to the funeral out of my little immediate family. And when I went to the funeral, I mean, I couldn't drop a tear. I was too busy having fun with my cousins and my family. And it seemed like, unfortunately, and not even just Black people, but most families treat funerals like family reunions. They meet up for bad things rather than celebrating something good. We go to more funerals than weddings. We go to more funerals than baby showers. We go to more funerals than birthdays. It's just, I don't know what's wrong with people. Funerals are not family gatherings. But anyways, I had a great time at his funeral as if he hadn't even died. And I don't know if it's because a part of God had prepared me, right? But then another part of me was I never even knew him. So it's like I'm sitting at this funeral and I notice my dad up there, but what can I really think about? I'm thinking about when he bought me a video game, when he got me a pair of shoes, right? But then I'm thinking about all the bad stuff I saw him do. So I feel mutual. It's like he's not so much as a stranger, he's like an acquaintance. I know of you and I know some things about you, and we're mutually connected. And it's easier to say, but it's a crushing feeling when you don't even know your own parents. And as I began to get older, I began to grieve for my father. He passed away when I was 14, but I began to grieve over him as I got older. And I'm in my 20s now, and I realized that my dad missed me graduate college. He's gonna miss out on my children's life. He's gonna miss out on me having a husband. When I have a big wedding, he's not gonna be able to walk me down the aisle. And so these things start hitting me that he's gonna miss out on the rest of my life. And I never knew him. I can only ask others about him. But I regret hating him. It took a long time, but I regret hating my father. And so that's the first way that I realized no time is promised. I would say this the second way was even worse. Second way was even worse because this happened right after my father passed. So now I'm 15. And it was the death of my grandmother. We called her grandmother. So it's my mom's mom. So my great grandmother on my mother's side. The way I could describe her is she was the most thoughtful, she was the most caring, the most loving person anyone could dream of. She always sent cards and never forgot our birthdays. She got all of her great grandchildren luggage with their names on it. She gave us $2 bills and gift cards to Dollar Tree, McDonald's. And it may be small gestures, but they all counted. When I had ran away and I chose to be in the streets, she didn't treat me less than. Her favorite place to go was, it sounded like I'm at her funeral speaking. I'm sorry. But I'm just expressing myself genuinely. Her favorite place to take us was IHOP. And she was still, even though I had ran away and I was dropped out of school and I was causing disruption and chaos, she never treated me less than. She brought me clothes over to the house and I ran away. I didn't have nothing to wear. And I just knew that she still loved me, even though I had felt so rejected by everybody else. But I betrayed her. When I was 16, um, I was out of control. And one afternoon in the summer, I went to her house with a plan in mind of my own. And I knew that if I get to her house, I can run. Because at my other granny house, she had too much of a tight rein on me. I mean, I couldn't even leave the front yard. I couldn't even go to the park that was literally on the corner of her house. And so I thought, if I get somebody that she trusts to pick me up, then I can run. So I conspired this plan. And I just thought of that Bible verse, the things that God hates. He hates feet that are quick to run into evil. And so one afternoon in the summer, she picked me up, and when she picked me up, she had a late birthday card for me because, like I said, she never forgot our birthdays. And she had some books for me because she had retired from the post office, and she would always send us books in the mail. I mean, we would get a big package, and what's in this package? And it was always books. And she would send us books. And anyways, once we got to her house, we'd do what we always do. We'd talk, or I would do her hair or massage her feet. She was in her 70s. She was up there in age. But like I said, I had a plan of my own. And so I told her I was going to the kitchen to get a drink of water. And her daughter, who was living there at the time, my great aunt, I gave her some money because she knew what I was getting ready to do. But I gave her some money to be quiet so I could get out the door. And so I went into the bathroom. I used the credit card. I ordered a Uber at the time, a Lyft, Uber, whichever one it was. And once I saw the Uber approaching on my phone, I told her I was going to the kitchen to get some water. And I remember it all like yesterday. And by the time I walked out of her room to go to the kitchen, I hit the front door. I gave my aunt her money. When I grabbed my purse from the bushes because I was hiding my purse outside, I didn't want to leave my purse in her room. I needed my purse. So I grabbed my purse from the bushes, and there was my Uber with my boyfriend and his friends waiting inside because I had the Uber pick them up first and then come to me. And I jumped in a car, went to go do whatever I was going to do that night. And my grandmother was calling me all night. And her voicemails, I could just hear the sincerity in her voice. One voicemail, she said that I'm not going to tell your mother. I'm not going to tell your granny because I was staying in Michigan at the time with my granny, and my mom was back in Arizona. She said, I'm not going to tell them, but you got until this time to get back to this house, young lady. And then she called me and she said, I just can't believe you, Jayla. I can't believe what has gotten into you. And I could just tell that she was just hurt. She was angry, but she didn't want nothing to happen to me. But it was one voicemail in particular that just deterred me from calling her. She said something along the lines of, don't ever call her again. And when she said that, I didn't bother to call her. I wanted to. And I just remember that day before I even walked out the house to grab my purse and get in that Uber. Because you always have an opportunity to back out of something. I remember one time I bought some drugs when I was going to sell them, but I didn't. I backed out the deal completely. You don't have to follow through with plans that you know is wrong. But in my mind, I know that I'm getting ready to go get shipped back to my mom somewhere I don't want to be. And even though I know that you love me, grandmother, you don't understand what I'm going back to. So I got to do what's best for me. And so I justified what was wrong. And I left her the way that I left her. And I didn't call her because she told me not to, even though I really wanted to. And so anyways, she was coming out to visit in Arizona. And I was thinking, this is finally my chance to apologize. I just need to see her face to face. And that morning, when she got off the plane, she died at the airport, getting off that plane. And it distraughted the whole family because, yeah, she had health issues and things like that, but she'd always gotten on the plane. She was known to travel. and she'd go travel, and we got a big family in multiple states. She would go out to Texas, and she would go out to California, and she'd come out to Arizona. She would go for maybe 2 months, 3 months at a time or whatever. And so I was thinking, I finally got a chance to apologize to her. And even though she made it to Arizona, they were on the way to the airport to go get her. And I didn't want to go because I knew that she was going to be mad at me in the car. So I was just going to wait till she got to the house to talk to her. But that day they didn't pick her up from the airport. The EMS did. And I never got a chance to tell her sorry. I never got a chance to explain to her why I did what I did. And not even trying to justify what I did, but why I did it. And I know that God forgives me. You know, you ask for forgiveness and you should be forgiven. But I had the chance when I was 14 with my dad, and I messed up, and then I had another chance when I was 15 with my grandmother, and I messed up again. You think that you have time, and you think that you're going to see people again, but you're just not. And the next story that I want to talk about, I would say it's even more difficult because it was recently. It would think it was just last week. Um, being taken away from my foster care child. So for safety reasons, I won't disclose her name, but I love my foster care child, and I don't even like calling it foster care. She's not a foster child. One thing that I learned since being back in Michigan, I'm around a whole bunch of family, but I still feel alone. And God has shown me that it's not about flesh and blood. It's not about any of that. Everybody is your brother and sisters. And look at older people as your mother and father. And I have that verse here. And I just want to bring it up really quickly. Hopefully it come up. But here it is. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 2. Or just go to 1 Timothy chapter 5. Do not rebuke an older man harshly, but exhort him as he were your father. Treat younger men as brothers. Verse 2 says, older women as mothers and younger women as sisters with absolute purity. So it's just basically saying, everybody is your brother and sister. And it may sound so far-fetched, but we all have the same creator. So it's not, when you think about it in that aspect, it's all this, we are all family in this world. Whether we treat each other like family because we real flesh and blood, if we treat each other like family because we have the same creator, everybody is your family, nobody's a foster child. So I have been praying for a couple of months. It took 3 months for God to answer this prayer. I have been praying to become a mentor. And I was going to church, and this one girl put a bug in my ear, and she told me a foster care home that she had been in. And so when I looked it up, they had mentorship. And I signed up to be a mentor. You had to go on the interview. I went on an interview, and I expressed in I honestly looked like I wouldn't get the part. I had long lashes, I had blonde hair. I felt like I didn't look like, and this is no offense, but I didn't look like a regular woman with brown hair and a natural face. And I come from a great background, and I just want to do social work, or I just want to volunteer. No, I was going in there as one of the broken children that were already there. I was broken myself, but I knew that somebody in there needed help. And so on my interview, they match you with a mentee, with the child, based on the things that you like. I love art. I love music, I love reading, and those are some of the things that I expressed on my interview. And I even gave her a piece of my background story of my life, suffering with abandonment and not having my parents. And this is why I really want to help people. And so the coordinator connected me with the child. And when I first met this child, I wasn't going in there ready to interrogate her on her life. So, what put you here? What made you like this? When I went in there, I just talked to her like a friend. And our first visit was monitored to see if we would get along. And we talked about our favorite foods and how we didn't like coleslaw. And she tried to get me to play this math game, and I told her how I really didn't like math. But as our visits went on, she began to mentor me just as much as I was mentoring her. And sometimes when I would tell her stories about my life and what I was doing wrong, she'd tell me, "You need to get it together. You need to get it together." And it was funny, but it was good to hear it from somebody like her. And when I went to the facility, I don't want to call it foster care, like I said, but when I went to the facility, it was like a prison. They had scheduled times to shower, scheduled times to eat. They went to school there, they couldn't leave. And every single time I would tell her bye, I was just so sad that I had to leave her there. And anyways, I loved her because she was real with me. She was genuine with me. And regardless of how many placements she had been in, and regardless of, how she lost her mom and what her dad did to her, and learning where all of her siblings were, most of them dead or in jail. And some of the stories that she told me just sounded unbelievable. But knowing that she had made it through it all, and mind you, she was only 12 years old, I was just amazed at her. And I called her my sunshine. Because if I was having a terrible week, or if I was just going through a rough patch in life, I knew that on Thursday I was going to see her and I could let it all out to her. And she would lift me up in my brokenness just as much as I would lift her up. And so, anyways, it was a lady on there on the campus who would work with the children, and her name was Miss Stephanie. Let's just call her that. And anyways, she was always mean. I don't know if she hated her job or if she had something going on at home, but she was mean. And she was mean to my mentee. And she was even rude to me. But every single time I see her, I would just, kill her with kindness. And we would pray on our visits sometime. We would pray or we would read the Bible. And we began to pray for Miss Stephanie and pray for the way that she was treated, my mentee. And took a couple months because I believe I mentored her for about 8 months altogether. But it took a couple months. And Miss Stephanie changed. She would say hi to me. She would ask me how I was doing. She would compliment me. She would be nice to my mentee. She would give us extra time on our visit. She would just do all the things that she wasn't doing before we prayed for her. And so I think about that Bible verse. Pray for your enemies. Pray for those who use you. Pray for those who hurt you. Pray for those who mistreat you. And we did that for Miss Stephanie. And so, anyways, after months of praying, she changed. And long story short, my mentee is finally getting fostered, adopted. and she talked to her adoptive parents about me to them, and they said that she could call me. And so I didn't know when I would be able to see her again. I didn't know when she would be leaving. And I gave her my number. They said she could call me from the house phone, and one day she can use my number because obviously she can't call me in here. That's not allowed. And she wasn't allowed to have a phone either. They aren't allowed to have phones. And so I thought one day she'll call me from the house phone and I'll answer and it'll be her. And so I gave her my number out of sincerity of wanting to keep contact with her and due to the bond that we had built together. And anyways, I got an email one day saying that they found out that I gave her my information. The facility had found out and I had broken the rules. And even though I highlighted to them, I went because I always like to fight things. I don't like to just give up. And so I went to the rule book where it said, if it's granted permission by the adoptive parents or the DHS worker, the counselor, whoever, for us to stay in contact, then we should. But because she was still their property, she was not allowed to have my number until she was turned over to her adoptive parents. And so they informed me that for safety reasons, we can only have one final visit and it will be monitored. And I mean, was I angry? Yes, I was. But I was looking forward to our last visit. And when I went there to visit her, I had her birthday gift from the week before because I wasn't able to see her. She wasn't there. And when I arrived with her birthday gift, they wouldn't even let me on the campus, told me my visit was canceled. And I tried to call that same lady that interviewed us and matched us up together. And in my heart, I know she canceled the visit out of spite and for safety reasons. But she could have let us see each other one more time. Even if we couldn't have a visit, I just wanted to hug her one more time. And I told the lady, kindly, this is what I told the security guard, kindly, I'm not going to move because I don't know why I'm being treated like this. Can you call her back and ask? And so I'm sitting there while the lady is trying to figure out why I can't get on campus. And the security guard wasn't rude to me. She really wasn't. But God sent Miss Stephanie. He sent that same lady right in front of me. I saw her walk by. Squinted, is that her? And when I saw her, I got out of my car and I started calling for her name. Miss Stephanie, Miss Stephanie. And I got out of my car and I handed her the gift that I was bringing for her over the security gate. And I said, tell her they won't let me see her anymore and I love her. And she said, well, I can't tell her that they won't let you see her anymore, but I'll give her her gift and I'll tell her that you love her. And when I got in my car, I just felt like I let her down. She'd been ripped away from so many people in her life. And I felt like I let her down. And even though I wanted her to get out of that facility, I mean, even when she told me when she was getting adopted, part of me felt sad because the adoptive parents don't let you have to stay in contact with whoever. But I even told her, I said, I'm happy you're getting adopted because it'd be selfish if I wanted you to stay here. But the fact that I just wasn't able to give her a proper goodbye, or I love you, or I'll see you again, or one more hug, I had to realize once again that nothing is promised. And I don't know when I'll see her again, and I don't know if she's okay. I don't have any contact to her. And I don't know if she lost my number, if they took it away. But I know that she'll never forget me. And I know that I'll never forget her. And we didn't leave off on bad terms. We just didn't get any closure. And so I don't know if I'll ever see her again on this earth. But I'm looking forward to seeing her in heaven. And so The purpose of today's video is just to remember that no time is promised. And don't be like me. Don't wait until somebody die. Don't think that you can plan on in your head, well, Tuesday at 5 o'clock, I'm going to meet up with them to talk and apologize. Don't do that. Because Proverbs 3 says, or no, Proverbs 15. A man has a way to life. A man has a way to life, but God establishes his steps. So, you may have your own plan or whatever you want to do to talk to these people, but you ain't got forever. So I just want to do a closing prayer today. Dear Lord, Heavenly Father, thank you for giving me the strength to make this video in truth. I pray, Lord, that it blesses anyone that watches it, Lord. I pray that it tears down the strongholds of unforgiveness, holding grudges. I pray, Lord, that you'll help them to forgive whoever has hurt them for their own sake. I pray and I ask you, Father, that you help them to forgive themselves. And I pray and I ask you, Lord, that you help us to remember that nothing is promised and to not take advantage of anything or anyone. Lord, I pray and I ask that you will heal our broken hearts, heal my broken heart. Lord, help anybody that's suffering with abandonment. Lord, I pray and I ask that if anybody is out there searching for their family or a lost loved one or a friend, Lord, that you will reunite them if it's in your will. And I thank you so much, God, for just granting us peace of mind to know that sometimes certain assignments must end and we might not get the closure. But thank you, God, for providing us with the chance and the opportunity of life that we do have. And I just want to say, if it's somebody that you're holding in unforgiveness, make sure you let them go. And if it's somebody that you think that you got time to talk to, whether if it's visiting the elderly or a sibling or a parent or a friend or an enemy, even if you don't have a chance to talk to them ever again, there's no way to talk to them, pray for them. And if they dead and gone, pray and ask God that he will release that feeling of regret from your heart. Because knowing that time is not promised will make you live in regret if you don't use your time wisely.